record and share a screen, and then we'll get started. Okay, so like I said, going through the voting process, just as far as controlling our elections. So obviously the government has to have some control over those elections. That's part of their job, is to control them and manage them and give us guidelines and laws to hopefully make our elections run more effectively. So like I think your book says, there's like 500,000 state and local offices in the United States. So most of the things that you're going to vote for are going to be state and local offices. So not too surprising then that most laws that deal with elections are made by the states, not by your federal government. That might be surprising, but most election law is state law that are going to kind of determine what voting looks like. Now, the federal government has stepped in and created some laws. So they've kind of made laws about congressional elections. Okay, when we vote for members of Congress, which makes sense, they've made some requirements and some decisions. They've made laws that deal with our electoral college and how electors are chosen and when they're submitted and when they're counted. And we'll talk more about that maybe next chapter, I think. They've given us the date, and of course our government has to use a confusing formula. The first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even numbered years. The first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even numbered years. So why don't they just choose like a date? Why don't they just say like November 7th or November 14th or November 15th? Why don't you think they just choose a date every year? Think about a calendar. Why not just say it's on November 15th of every even numbered year instead of this janky formula here?
Like on the weekends or something?
What's that?
Could it be like, can they vote on weekends? Because like, what if that one day falls on a weekend or something?
Exactly. Okay, if they would just leave it as a date, okay, like November 15th, what happens when that falls on Sunday? Obviously, separation of church and state is going to be blurred there a little bit. Why don't they say like just the first Tuesday? Why after the first Monday?
Because a month could start on a Tuesday instead of a Monday.
Say that again, Caitlin.
Because a month could start on a Tuesday instead of a Monday, because like when the calendar changes.
Yeah, and why might we want to avoid like the first day of the month? I know it's funny to think about, but sometimes people get paid on the first day of the month, so they're getting paychecks, and all of a sudden they're more worried about going to the bank instead of going to their polling place. So again, just minor details that somebody way smarter than me thought about. So they give us a really confusing formula. So we're saying, okay, it's not going to be on the first day of the month where bills are due or you're getting paid or other cycles kind of go through on the first day. So that's why. Okay, so it requires the use of a secret ballot. So we'll talk about that, and then just protecting your right to vote, whether it's no poll tax, no literacy test, getting rid of other requirements. So most states have essentially followed what the federal government says and follow that. But if state elections are not on the same day in November, then they're generally going to be in the spring. Okay, so we're coming here up shortly is our primary election. That's in the spring, and other elections, if they're not in November, they're going to be in the spring, typically in April or May. So the process itself, how does it work? Well, the first thing you got to do in our state, and I try to make this as specific to Nebraska as possible, is you have to register to vote. And it is really easy to do that, like easier than it's ever been. Okay, so really, you can and I guess this was kind of new to me, you can pretty much do everything with voter registration online. I didn't realize that. I still thought there had to be something in person. But so, it says what you can use this website for. You can register to vote. You can, when you move, you're supposed to update your address. We'll talk more about why that is. If you change political party, so if you're Democrat or Republican, you're switching, you want to be independent, you want to be a libertarian, you're supposed to update it. This typically applies to women, but if you get married and your name changes, you're supposed to update your voter registration. That's all things you can do online, and I'm not going to hit continue, but again, this website's easy to find, Nebraska Secretary of State, so it's really easy to register. So that's the first thing you have to do, is kind of meet that requirement of voter registration. Sample ballots, this is something maybe you want to think about. If you're a person who likes to be prepared for things, you might want to look at sample ballots. So a certain amount of time before election day, sample ballots will be released. And a lot of times they're printed in like local newspapers, or you can find them online. They're not for you to fill out, but you can pull them up and you can look at them. So that way you don't show up to the polling place on election day and you're given like this 4 or 5 page ballot and you start to freak out like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff? There's all these circles to fill in. You can look at a sample ballot and say, hey, I know that I want to vote for president. I want to vote for Congress. I want to vote for a governor. I want to vote for a county commissioner. All this other stuff like Little Blue NRD and SCC Board of Trustees and University Board of Trustees, county weed supervisor and all these different things. Like if you're not informed and don't know the people, then you don't have to worry about it. So sample ballots might be a good option, especially if you're a first-time voter who just wants to see what the ballot's going to look like. Is a good way to preview before you go in there. From there, you have to get your polling place. Okay, so your polling place is that physical place where you're going to go and submit your ballot. Okay, so like in a community like Beatrice or Fairbury, there might be, I think there's like 4 in Fairbury, and Beatrice probably has a few more because it's bigger. DeWitt probably has 1. Plymouth has 1. So that makes it a little bit easier, but you have to know where you're going to vote. Okay, you can't just show up at any polling place to vote. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. You can't just show up at any polling place to vote. So let's say next November, like you're just rolling through Beatrice, and like, oh, I forgot to vote in DeWitt. I'm just gonna stop in here to this polling at this church in Beatrice and vote. No, okay, you are assigned a specific polling place. Okay, so you have to know where to go. Most polling places are like churches or community centers, are the most common ones really as far as our smaller communities go. Community centers like town hall type places are where they're going to be held. But you have to figure out where that is. Your polling place is determined by your address. Okay, so whatever address you register at, you'll be assigned a polling place to vote. Okay, so when we talk about, if you talk about Beatrice or Fairbury or other cities, you look a map of that city, and they're going to divide it up into political subdivisions, precincts or wards. Okay, and they're going to try and make those look or have about the same population. Okay, so hang on here. I think I have a copy of Fairbury's. Okay, everybody can see this? I know probably small on your screen, but so Fairbury has 4, 4 wards or precincts. Okay, so they've divided the city of Fairbury up, and they try to make these have about the same number of people. And if you live in 1, 2, 3, or 4, then you are assigned to a certain polling place. Okay, so if I live in 2 and they tell me to go to the Fairbury Community Center to vote, I'm not going to cruise across town and go up into precinct 4 and try and vote at American Lutheran Church. Okay, they're not going to let you, even in a small town like Fairbury. Okay, so that's like a town level. They do the same thing when it comes to counties. Okay, so Jefferson County voting precincts. Again, I know it's probably tough to see, but here again, they divide it up. Okay, and they tell you where to go based on where you live. Okay, so that's really one thing that you kind of need to know. So if you register to vote, I think it should say on your voter registration card, but Nebraska has made it really easy again to look it up. So if you don't know where to vote, you forgot your polling place, you can go and a quick Google search, like I think I just searched Nebraska polling place lookup. Okay, and it's going to bring you this website, and all you have to do, assuming that you're registered to vote, okay, and you type in your information and search, okay, and it's going to pull up your information. Okay, so this is me. Okay, so this is my voting information. So I can look polling place. I go to Diller. Okay, quick, easy lookup. All right. It's also going to tell you some other things like what districts you live in and what things you can vote for. Okay, so like, I mean, I live in Fairbury Public Schools district. So school board elections, I don't get a vote for Tri-Counties School Board. I vote for Fairbury's. It tells you my precinct name, my precinct code. This is new, it puts a little map in there. Okay, so it makes it really, really easy to look it up if you forget or if you lose your voter registration card. Really easy if you don't want to get on the phone and call somebody and ask. Okay, clear on the polling places? Good there? Okay, so we've registered. We know where we're going. It's election day. Okay, election day 2020. So you need to show up to your correct polling place, not just one of your choice. And then generally those polling places are open 7 to 7 or 8 to 8. I think it's 8 to 8 in Nebraska. Okay, so they're pretty much open all day. Okay, and you know, where we live, you don't have to worry too much about long lines or anything. You could typically, like, if you wanted to try to do it over your lunch hour, you probably would have time to do that, or you can just do it after work. And you're gonna have to give your registration information, okay, because they're gonna make sure that you're registered and you're a qualified voter. And you're going to get your ballots and you're going to vote. They're going to, again, I talked about this earlier, but they're going to direct you back, okay, to a place where you get to fill out your ballot in secret. Okay, so like it's not like a classroom setting where, you know, you're just sitting right next to your peers and you can look at each other's paper. Okay, a secret ballot means you are given privacy, usually like in a little cubicle curtain type thing, to fill out your ballot. Okay, nobody is going to look at your choices, okay, except the people who count it. All right, so that is a guarantee you have. One other thing is, again, I mentioned this, you don't have to fill out the whole thing. Okay, if you only want to vote for President of the United States next November, then only do that. Okay, so just vote for what you want to, what you feel comfortable for. You don't have to vote for every single office, and you know, you don't have to vote at all. Mention those things, and then you'll turn in your ballot to the people working there, and that's essentially it. Okay, so all the buildup of getting registered and making sure you know where you're going and all that stuff, it could be done in probably 5 or 10 minutes by the time you get in there and fill in the circles you want and cast your ballot. Here's the what if. Okay, so you know, I don't know exactly where people are going to college, but is anybody going to a school that's like a ways away from home? Anybody? Anybody? Maybe. So if you are, okay, or even if you're not and you're in college, and guess what? Let's say your Tuesday, Thursday college schedule is jam-packed. Okay, and I know that come next November, I won't have time to come back to DeWitt or Beatrice or Plymouth or go to Diller and vote. Okay, I can't. I can't. I have class. I have work. I can't get to my polling place. Are you not able to vote? And the answer is no. Okay, there is an option for you to still vote without actually going to your polling place on election day. Okay, now most people do. Okay, most people do show up and vote in person, over half. Okay, but you don't have to. So there's something called early voting or absentee voting. Okay, really easy thing to do. Pretty much every state will give its voters the option of voting before election day without going to your polling place. Okay, so you can get the ballot ahead of time, fill it out, send it in, and then not have to worry about getting out of class, skipping class, getting off work, traveling back home, etc. Okay, because I talked about this with the registration. Most of you are not going to re-register to vote when you go to college. Okay, so like KU, let's say if you go to Peru, Creighton, okay, you're not going to re-register your residence, your address as your dorm room in Peru, Nebraska. Okay, you're going to keep your home address as, well, it might be Lincoln now, right? But you're not going to switch it. Okay, it's your address is still going to be, in most cases, your parents' place, even while you're in school. Okay, so you can get your ballot ahead of time. Okay, and it's a pretty easy process. You have to apply or request it. It's an easy process. You just have to remember to do it. Here's the deal. Okay, and I probably shouldn't even tell you this. I have voted in every election that I've been eligible to since I turned 18, but I have never done it in person. Every single time that I voted, I've done it this way. Okay, because it's easy. When I was in college, it was easy to do it this way. I don't have to worry about coming home. Even now with my job, like it's just easier to, get it in the mail, fill it out at my leisure, put it back in the mail, send it in, I'm done. Okay, so again, it's an easy process. The states set deadlines, so there are deadlines like this is your last day to apply for a early voting ballot or absentee ballot. This is your last day to receive it. This is your deadline to turn it in. All those are different requirements. So I wanted to show you Nebraska's because I think this is a good option for you to do. So we have a primary election coming up, right? And we'll talk more about that in the next chapter. But early voting, so it outlines here's all your deadlines. Okay. So the last day that you could request a ballot for the primary, if you're eligible to vote, is May 1st. Okay, after that is too late. May 11th, okay, is the last day that you can vote in a county election office. All right, and there's some different deadlines on there. Okay, criteria. So like you don't have to have a reason even. Like it used to be like absentee voting was reserved for kind of special circumstances, military, ill, people who can't physically get to the polls. Anymore, and anybody can do early voting. Okay, someone fully capable of going to the polls doesn't have to. All right, so this is a really good option. The form itself is really simple. Okay, so here's the form. You're pretty much just name information. You sign your life away. Tell them where you want the ballot sent. Send that in. Drop it off at your courthouse. You're good to go. Okay, so that's a nice option. Big picture when it comes to voting. Okay, sometimes it comes across as intimidating or cumbersome, right? You got to register, you got to know where to vote, you got to do all this stuff, but it's really not that bad. It's one of those things where once you do it once, it's nothing. Okay, you just kind of get that first time over with, and it's good to go from there. But don't let those things deter you from voting. Tons of resources online, your county courthouse, Ask Me. But what it comes down to, the whole purpose of this discussion, okay, this slideshow, if you want to vote, vote, okay? If you don't want to vote for whatever reason, then don't. I'm not sitting here telling you have to vote or you should vote. I would love it if you would, but it comes down to a personal preference and it's your choice. Okay. One of the great things about our country is you can vote, okay, but you don't have to. And whatever reason you have, that's totally your call. So as young adults who are kind of coming up on voting age people, that's totally up to you, and you get to make that choice, and you make that choice for yourself. Now, elections will be interesting with COVID-19. I got something in the mail last week that was pretty much encouraging people to try and do early voting. If you watch the news at all, Wisconsin coming under major heat. They pretty much shut down all but a handful of their polling places, which made it really, really difficult for people to vote in their primary. So you sure hope that this whole thing is over by November and voting looks normal by then, but your primaries this spring here are going to look a lot different, I think. So anyway, I talked way too long, and any questions on any of that as far as voting goes?